Ain't nobody gonna tell me how to live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host for Truck Month. Let me get this straight. A Post Malone country album. Yeah, kind of tracks. Austin Post, aka Post Malone, migrated from LA to New York in his late teens, forming a music collective that eventually produced the viral 2015 hit White Iverson. From there, Post was signed to Republic and found himself as a featured artist on Kanye West's 2016 track Fade. A full-length tape, live performances, and televised appearances added to his stardom, leading to his first studio album Stoney later that year. And it's not my favorite material from him, to be honest. I found Posty's early work to be a little shallow, undercooked, and slightly annoying. But that's not to say that when he clicked, he didn't knock it out of the park, because he did with tracks like Congratulations and I Fall Apart. Beer Bongs and Bentleys came in 2018, however, and that's the moment where Posty showed the mainstream what he's capable of, and it's still his best album to date. Hit after hit, he practically ruled the charts at this point, but the aesthetics and focus on that record are pretty strong, and that bled into his 2019 punk and metal-inflected Hollywood's Bleeding, yet another winner critically and commercially for Post. A few one-off singles tided us over until 2022's 12 Carat Toothache, which was a slight backslide for him that slinked into dance pop territory, but didn't quite connect due to its flat instrumentals. 2023's Austin found him collaborating with Andrew Watt once again, this time swinging into the bombastic synth-pop arena jam bag, and it mostly works, with Chemical and Morning proving to be some of his best hits this decade so far. But the writing's been on the wall since his feature on Dial Drunk and Levi's Jeans that he'd be heading in the country direction, and he's been primed for a crossover for a while. So that's why F-1 Trillion, even though it's mired in too much of a collaboration focus, is actually surprisingly good. With chief production credits coming from Louis Bell and Charlie Handsome, who are typically known for their work with pop and rap artists across the spectrum like Camila Cabello and Drake, you assume that their stylings would be leaning towards that aesthetic. But here they're about as country pop as you can get with a rock-inflected twist. Lead single I Had Some Help rolls along with a prominent yet basic guitar lick at its center, and the opener Wrong Ones benefits from a rollicking blues crunch that ironically would fit on a Tim McGraw record. And generally, the musical flourishes ebb and flow between lovelorn ballads with somewhat bland instrumentation and scorching rock-infused jams with titanic guitar solos. Like California Sober and MEXICO sound like they were recorded live in the studio and were a hell of a time to make. But conversely, softer cuts like Devil I've Been and Yours soar with a blend that's glossy but never overdone. I do feel like the flatness of the production on Have the Heart dulls the interplay between Dolly Parton and Post, and the banality and processed feel of Hide My Gun and Losers didn't really grab me the way that the singles did. But overall, it's a proficiently executed palette that speaks to the joy at the center of modern country pop. First and foremost, I'm going to call out the beautiful songwriting at the core of Yours, which is a touching letter of love to Post's daughter that has relatable feelings about fatherhood. Not going to lie, it choked me up when he talked about walking her down the aisle because it made me think about when I'm going to be a parent in that position. Outside of that, I feel like Post missed an opportunity to scratch past the surface level splendor of typical country pop themes, and instead opts for generic lyrical retreads that you could easily find on a Miranda Lambert or Luke Bryan record, so it's just a little forced. Have the Heart is one of the biggest songwriting missteps here, aiming for a breakup anthem but coming across as chart fodder, especially with such a thin spot for Dolly Parton that doesn't really do anything to enhance the track. And Post lines up the same country tropes of drinking too much and losing your girl on Guy Like That, Finer Things, Devil I've Been, and Pour Me a Drink, which aren't bad but could have used more originality and personality. But when you have a California Sober or MEXICO or Wrong Ones, which flex his ability to be playful and fun in his storytelling, it still turns out to be a rewarding experience on the lyrical front. The biggest, most consistent problem that I've had with Post's voice on a record is the overuse of vibrato and the dramatized delivery, especially on Hollywood's Bleeding and 12 Carat Toothache, but he seems to have dialed that back in recent years. F-1 Trillion might actually be the best his singer-songwriter form has sounded for him so far, featuring bold vocal runs on Never Love You Again that hold the line between solid, straightforward country and lovesick modern pop. But then he lets loose with loads of character on California Sober with Chris Stapleton, which actually hits home on why the concept of a Posty country record is awesome. Speaking of, the features here are excessive. I get the idea of gathering all of the country Avengers to prop up this album as a big, cinematic, important experience, but I do feel like it takes away from what Post brings to the project. For every appearance of a Luke Combs or a Chris Stapleton or Tim McGraw, we have a Brad Paisley or a Jelly Roll or a Hardy feature that doesn't quite work, failing to capture our attention in the way that Post would on just a solo track. So for me, that was a component of the record that had me checking out periodically. At 18 tracks and 27 if we're counting the long bed, this is a pretty long project, but that's not new to Post. His longest album is actually his best album, so usually this wouldn't be an issue. But at 57 minutes for the standard version, this record does tend to drag, particularly in the midsection where he hit the Dolly Parton track, as well as some weak moments like What Don't Belong to Me, Nosedive, and Losers. But Post is able to rein it back in with the smooth balladry of Missing You Like This, and of course the gleeful country pop rock of California Sober and MEXICO. And by the time he closes it with the heartfelt tribute to his daughter, Yours, it's clear that even if he stumbles throughout, this was a worthwhile shift in approach and genre that will pay off for not only his fans, but country fans in general.
I was hanging around in Brooklyn town with a settled down type girl. Her daddy.
I like this album. Better yet, I respect the hell out of it too. I just kind of wish that some of the long bed tracks made the standard edition rather than some of the filler tracks. And while it doesn't land in the same way that the stadium pomp of Austin does, or his neo-noir pop trap hybrids of the late 2010s did, it shows that Post is not only capable of pushing himself into territory that feels more natural, but he can really thrive when he puts his own spin on it. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a Post Malone fan, there's so much to love and replay on this record. And if you're in need of some fun mainstream country pop jams, this one's for you. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!